Solo leveling Ragnarok is finally here. The sequel everyone's been screaming for like their life depended on it. And if you've been rocking with us through the main series, then you already know the energy. You know the drill. Obliterate that like button because your support is literally the fuel keeping this madness alive. And don't get comfortable. We're just getting started. No blinking, no breaks. Let's dive straight into the abyss. Before anything existed, before time, before worlds, before reality had a chance to regret itself, there were beings known as the Outer Gods, and if you had to sum them up in one clean sentence, imagine cosmic toddlers with god complexes, infinite power, and absolutely nothing better to do. These freaks created universes the way kids build sandcastles, then wiped them out just as casually when they got bored. Creation, destruction, reset, repeat. Eventually, even that got old. So what did these all-powerful idiots do next? They discovered war, because of course they did. Watching entire civilizations slaughter each other became their new favorite form of entertainment. Death, chaos, extinction events. Just background noise for these divine couch potatoes. For them, genocide was a spectator sport. Then something happened that absolutely should not have happened. One of the absolutes, one of these untouchable gods, got wiped out. And not by another god. Nope, it got clapped by its own creations. The other absolutes didn't mourn. They didn't panic. They got excited, like vultures circling fresh roadkill. An all-powerful seat had just been vacated, and the leftover authority, the kind of power that bends existence itself, was now just there, waiting. Whoever could claim it would rise above everything else. Meanwhile, light years away from cosmic god drama, on a painfully normal planet called Earth, a high schooler named Suho was fighting a much smaller, but still personal battle: freedom. He'd just gotten accepted into Korea Art University, and his friends stared at him like he'd casually announced he was dating a top-tier K-pop idol. One of them groaned that Suho should have retaken the exam, but Suho just laughed, pure relief written all over his face. High school hell was finally over. That piece lasted exactly 5 seconds. A voice cut through the room. Suho turned and saw Lee Yun strutting toward him, like he owned the place. Completely out of patience and fresh out of fucks, Suho deliberately butchered the guy's name. Lee snapped back instantly, correcting him, Lee Yan Shul, before launching into a rant about how Suho had ruined his master plan to dominate the school. Suho didn't even blink. He smirked and casually fired back that Lee should be thanking him. Now he could graduate without embarrassing himself any further. The classroom tension skyrocketed. Everyone knew Lee's reputation: loud, annoying, and desperate for attention. Graduation was right there, and yet here he was, starting shit with Suho, a guy who just wanted to disappear after his parents vanished without a trace. Lee lunged. Big mistake. Suho moved with calm, clean precision, driving a sharp knee straight into Lee's face and sending him stumbling back. Not wanting things to spiral, Suho told him to just make it to graduation, quietly. And then reality snapped in half. A strange glowing energy flickered around Lee's hand. He roared, not like a kid throwing a tantrum, but like something awakening. Then he punched, not Suho, but the lockers behind him. They didn't dent, they didn't bend, they imploded. Metal folded in on itself like paper caught in a black hole. The entire class froze, brains short-circuiting simultaneously. Suho was knocked to the floor by the shockwave. When he looked up, Lee stood there, hands crackling with otherworldly power. And just like that, everything changed. Time skip. 2 years passed. The world Suho thought he understood was dead and buried. Now a second-year college student, that moment still haunted him. The image of a classmate reducing steel lockers to scrap with glowing hands. As Suho crossed campus, an announcement boomed from the loudspeakers. All classes in the main building were being relocated. A gate had appeared. Hunters were already inside, doing what was basically professional monster extermination. Someone nearby asked how long the raid had been going. A staff member answered casually, over 8 hours. But it was only a D-rank gate, so it should be wrapping up soon. 3 years ago, the world had officially lost its damn mind. Gates began opening, linking Earth to monster-infested hellscapes. At first, these things just vomited creatures into the streets, pushing humanity to the brink of extinction. Then, evolution panic-rolled a miracle. Certain humans awakened, manifesting supernatural abilities. Out of the chaos rose one insanely competent man, Woo Jin-chul, who founded the Hunter Association, a system to gather the superpowered and point them at the problem. Thanks to him, the world reached a fragile, deeply fucked up balance. Humanity was split in two: Team Superpowered Badass and Team Please Don't Eat Me. Fate was cruel. Some people won the genetic lottery and became living weapons. Others stayed normal, fragile, powerless, expendable. Even the weakest E-rank hunter held more influence than regular people who actually worked for a living. And as unfair as it was, it made sense. Without hunters, civilization wouldn't last a week. But hunters didn't need everyone else anymore. That's why Suho, an honorary member of the Please Don't Eat Me Club, felt grateful. Because of them, people like him could live in peace. Still, something felt wrong. Was he just getting used to losing things? His parents? His normal life? The ability to stand near school furniture without someone detonating reality? He used to believe he could do anything. Now all that remained was a hollow sense of being useless. His mother once said, He was just like his father, a man he barely remembered. Suho wondered how his dad would have handled a world that had completely gone off its meds. Lost in thought, his hand moved on its own. His pencil danced across the page, sketching without permission. His art instructor, Lim, stopped and smiled at the detailed image forming. That's impressive, Suho. Suho looked up slowly, eyes distant. I don't know, he said. My hand just moved on its own. The professor leaned closer, squinting at Suho's notebook like he was trying to decode an ancient prophecy. He tilted his head and asked, half curious, half confused, "Is that an ant?" Suho blinked and followed his gaze down to the page. Sure enough, staring back at him was a detailed sketch of an insect. An ant, he frowned. He had zero memory of drawing it, no recollection, no intent, which only made it worse. Why the hell was his subconscious so obsessed with tiny picnic-ruining nightmares? He shrugged it off, but an uneasy feeling lingered in his chest. Meanwhile, over at the D-rank gate, the atmosphere was so peaceful it felt fake, like the calm before a disaster montage. Hunter Kim Jong-soo, fresh out of what should have been a routine dungeon crawl, delivered his report to the association staff. He explained that they'd encountered a strange new monster type inside, a humanoid creature, twisted proportions, and instead of a normal mouth, blue flames poured straight out of its face like a living blowtorch. Kim mentioned casually that he'd been scratched during the fight. No pain, no strange symptoms, nothing immediate, so he'd brushed it off as a minor inconvenience. Just another occupational hazard. The staff member listening nodded along, equally clueless. He even commented that this kind of creature had never been recorded before cheerfully adding that it was lucky the thing hadn't been too dangerous. With that comforting lie said out loud, the staff returned to file the report, and then his body locked up mid-step. At first, no one reacted. Then someone wondered if he was having a stroke. Before anyone could finish that thought, Hunter Kim turned around. His expression was completely empty, no emotion, no hesitation, and in a single brutal motion, he obliterated the staff member beside him with one devastating blow. Panic detonated instantly. The remaining hunters staggered backward, faces drained of color, as the truth hit them all at once. They knew exactly what this was. The curse. Those blue flames weren't just for intimidation. They were a goddamn infection, a living virus, and Kim Jong-soo was patient zero. A twisted grin stretched across his face as he lunged again, beginning a one-man massacre. He tore through security staff and former teammates alike, bodies falling like props in a horror movie. Screams filled the air as onlookers scattered in every direction. Some managed to run, others didn't even get that far. Their lives were snuffed out in explosive bursts of blue-flamed carnage. The cursed hunter was no longer human. He was a walking apocalypse stuffed into a tactical vest, turning the entire area into a blood-soaked playground. Back in a distant classroom, the sudden chorus of screaming shattered the lecture. Students jolted upright and rushed to the windows. What they saw made their blood run cold. Monsters were roaming the streets. Civilians were burning, their bodies wrapped in eerie blue flames, eyes glowing as they attacked each other like rabid animals. "It's a dungeon break!" someone shouted, voice cracking. In pure desperation, a student turned to the art instructor. "You're an awakened, right? Do something." The instructor swallowed and shook his head grimly. "I'm only E-rank," which was basically the superpowered equivalent of saying, "I'm completely useless." That's when Suho saw him. The original cursed hunter stood outside, staring up at the classroom like a final boss who'd gotten tired of waiting for the cutscene to end. The next second, he launched himself forward. Suho's survival instincts, long dormant, screamed at full volume. "Run!" he yelled, just as the hunter smashed through the window in a storm of glass and death. Chaos erupted. Suho bolted for the door, screaming for everyone to move, to escape, to not freeze. Ahead of him, a girl collapsed to the floor, her legs shaking uncontrollably. She looked up at him, tears streaming down her face, begging for help. "Please help me!" Suho stopped, just for a heartbeat. Heroism flickered, then reality punched it in the face. His overwhelming desire to not get ripped in half won. He turned and ran. To drown out the guilt clawing at his chest, he told himself he'd call the hunters. That help was coming, but the guilt didn't stop. It grew heavier with every step. What the fuck am I doing? He knew the truth. She wouldn't last until help arrived. But then another thought slammed into him. I'm not awakened. What else can I do? He squeezed his eyes shut. And then another thought surfaced, quiet but crushing. If Dad were here, what would he do? Suho snapped back to reality. Screams, blue flames, death everywhere. And suddenly he knew. Without thinking, he spotted a fire extinguisher. He grabbed it, spun around, and charged straight at the cursed hunter. With every ounce of strength his powerless body had, he slammed the metal canister into the monster's face. This is what Dad would have done. Then the adrenaline faded, and panic hit. Oh shit. What now, you dumbass? He knew normal attacks didn't work on awakened monsters. Just as terror threatened threatened to shut him down completely, the world froze. Everything stopped. The screaming, the movement, the dust floating in the air. Even time itself felt locked in place. A glowing blue screen appeared in front of Suho's face like a cosmic pop-up ad. Secret quest discovered, courage of the powerless. The system informed him that he had shown bravery in the face of certain death. Because of that, he had earned the right to become a player. Suho's breath hitched. This was just like that dream. The universe was offering him a last-ditch cheat code mid-boss fight, a chance to stop being useless. Resolve burned in his eyes as he mentally smashed the accept button. Blinding light engulfed the room as reality finished installing his main character, DLC. You have become a player. A status window followed, straight out of an RPG. Just as I thought, Suho muttered. Then another message slammed into his vision. Urgent quest, defeat the Mistborn. Thick mist flooded the room. Figures stirred within it. Monsters rose. The system tagged the cursed hunter as a D-rank Mistborn. Suho turned to the girl, still frozen on the floor, and shouted at her to get the hell out. She didn't hesitate. Now alone, he scanned the room. 2 transformed civilians. 1 cursed hunter. The civilians charged. Suho didn't run. If I've really awakened, then I fight. He grabbed the fire extinguisher again and smashed the first creature's skull, the impact echoing unnaturally. Dropping the canister, he clenched his fist, pouring years of frustration and helplessness into a single punch. He drove it straight into the monster's head. It didn't fall. It launched upward, slamming into the ceiling with a brutal crunch before collapsing into a lifeless heap. Suho stood there, frozen, staring at his own fist, like it had personally betrayed everything he knew about reality. His brain lagged for a second, before words finally slipped out. I dropped it in one hit. Right on cue, the system chimed in like an overly enthusiastic game announcer, happily confirming the kill as if this were totally normal behavior for a formerly powerless college kid. Before Suho could even begin unpacking that existential whiplash, the second enemy came charging in like it had missed the memo about him being built different now. This time, there was no panic, no hesitation. Suho stepped forward and snapped out a kick with raw instinct. The impact sent the creature flying backward, slamming into the wall before collapsing unconscious like a trash mob that never stood a chance. Tutorial quest completed. The notification popped up, and Suho felt a rush surge through him. Pure adrenaline, pure ego. Riding that high like he was invincible, he slowly turned toward the final enemy, a wide grin plastered across his face. So this is what power feels like. High on his own newfound stats, he wound up and threw a haymaker with absolute confidence, fully expecting to send the thing into another zip code. The monster didn't move, not even a flinch. Suho's grin evaporated instantly. Oh, fuck. The creature tanked the punch like it was a gentle breeze, then retaliated in a blink. Its claw ripped across Suho's chest, tearing flesh open. Blood sprayed as Suho stumbled backward, choking on air, pain exploding through his body. His mind immediately spiraled to the worst possible conclusion. I'm turning into one of those blue flame idiots, aren't I? Just as panic tried to hijack his nervous system, the system, acting like customer support for reality, casually dropped a notification. Harmful mist effect removed due to longevity. Suho watched, stunned, as his wound literally stitched itself shut. Flesh reknit, blood vanished. The pain faded like it had never existed. You've got to be kidding me. He didn't even have time to fully process this premium healing subscription before the monster slammed into him again, pinning him flat against the ground with overwhelming force. The air was crushed from his lungs as he struggled beneath its weight, internally regretting every life decision that had led him here. Then it hit him. Use your fucking rewards, you dumbass. While actively getting mauled, Suho frantically accepted the tutorial rewards, navigating the system menu in his head like a gamer speedrunning character creation. Without hesitation, he dumped every single stat point straight into strength. The change was immediate. Power flooded his body like a dam bursting. With a roar, Suho exploded upward, breaking free from the monster's grip. He lunged forward, unleashing a furious barrage of punches, fueled by raw rage and years of bottled-up frustration. The creature fought back, but this wasn't the same Suho anymore. He dodged, countered, moved with growing precision. Each exchange made something click in his head. I can get stronger. One final devastating punch sent the monster crashing into the wall. Before it could even think about standing back up, Suho closed the distance and unloaded. A relentless storm of strikes, fists thundering like artillery. The creature stopped fighting. It wasn't even a battle anymore. It was a beatdown. Suho didn't stop until the thing was nothing more than a broken, twitching heap on the floor. Panting hard, bruised, and bloodied, he stood over the corpse as the system confirmed his victory. He had survived. His legs finally gave out, and he dropped to his knees, gasping like he'd just run a marathon with asthma set to hard mode. Despite the pain screaming through his body, a smile crept onto his face. This was real. He wasn't powerless anymore. He was a player. But the universe, being a certified asshole, wasn't done with him yet. Before Suho could even catch his breath, a new presence announced itself. From the smoke and debris outside, a towering figure approached, dragging an enormous sword that screeched against the concrete with every step. Then it jumped. The thing launched itself through the air and landed near the shattered window, glowing blue eyes locking onto Suho like a predator spotting prey. And as if that wasn't enough, another presence moved behind him. A mistburn lunged from inside the building, but this one was different. This wasn't a tutorial mob. This was a C-rank awakened mistburn, armed and terrifyingly aware, its massive sword carved through concrete and steel as it advanced, turning the campus into a war zone. Across the city, emergency broadcasts blared non-stop, ordering civilians to evacuate the area around Korea National University of Arts. At the perimeter, a platoon leader was on the verge of a mental breakdown. "Why the hell are we just standing here while people are dying?" he shouted. "When is the Hunter Association sending someone?" A soldier replied calmly that they were still trying to locate a B-rank or higher hunter. The leader snapped, "This was a D-rank gate. Why would we need a B-rank?" The soldier's expression darkened. The situation changed. The curse went viral, and C-rank hunter Kim Jong-soo is confirmed infected. Back inside the wrecked building, Suho was having his own internal meltdown. This thing wasn't just strong. It had a weapon and intelligence. The system flagged it clearly. C-rank awakened mistburn. A massive jump in difficulty. Suho swallowed hard. He just leveled up. Maybe, just maybe, he had a chance. The thought barely formed before the monster attacked, its sword strike shaking the entire room. Suho dodged on pure instinct, and in a moment of stunningly unoriginal desperation, kicked another fire extinguisher at it. The monster sliced it clean in half. Using the cloud of smoke as cover, Suho bolted, sprinting like hell while praying backup arrived before he became modern art on the walls. But the monster's attention shifted. Across from them, on a nearby rooftop, terrified civilians screamed. Fresh prey. With a single leap, the mistburn landed among them. One swing. Blood painted the rooftop. Suho froze, fists clenched so tight his knuckles went white. Something inside him snapped awake, his inner protagonist finally clocking in after years of absence. "No more running," he charged. His foot slammed into the monster's back. It barely reacted before retaliating, its sword cleaving the floor in two. The shockwave nearly sent Suho tumbling into the abyss below. He finally understood the truth. One clean hit, and he was dead. But backing down wasn't an option anymore. He lunged again, fists flying in a blur of desperation. The mistburn swung back, every strike lethal. Suho dodged, weaved, countered, driving a knee into its burning face, only to be rewarded with a brutal sword slash across his chest. Blood detonated from the gash as Suho's body was hurled across the room, slamming into the wall hard enough to make the concrete cry for mercy. Every nerve in his body screamed at once. A cold, emotionless system alert rang out in his head, informing him, politely, almost mockingly, that his HP had dropped to critically low, like one bad breath away from a respawn screen. He hacked up blood, dragging himself upright on legs that barely remembered how to function. His vision swam, ears ringing, lungs burning. Still, he forced his stance, shoulders trembling as he braced himself for one last, absolutely suicidal exchange. If he was going down, it wouldn't be while begging. The mistburn didn't hesitate. It raised its sword, the blade howling through the air as it came down for the kill. And then, reality snapped. The air itself cracked like glass. Space folded inward as a dimensional rift ripped open, splitting the world apart with a deafening roar. From that tear stepped something majestic, something ancient, overwhelming, and instantly recognizable to anyone who knew true terror. The cavalry had arrived, and it was everyone's favorite overgrown murder bug. Just as the mistburn's blade was about to cleave Suho in half, Beru dropped between them like a divine executioner, catching the attack without even flinching. A warm, gentle light flowed from his palm as he turned slightly, laying a hand on Suho. Flesh knit itself together. Bones realigned. Pain evaporated like it had never existed. Beru's voice was low, heavy with regret. He murmured that he had arrived too late. Then he turned. The temperature in the room plummeted. Beru's aura exploded outward, a crushing pressure that made the air feel thick, suffocating, alive with dread. The mistburn didn't even get time to react. With a single, brutally casual strike, Beru didn't just kill it, he erased it. The C-rank threat was unmade on a fundamental level, reduced to shredded fragments and blue-flamed confetti scattered across the battlefield. But he wasn't finished. Another mist zombie skittered along the ceiling, creeping toward a fleeing civilian, thinking it was slick. Beru moved. There was no wasted motion, no hesitation. Just a blur of lethal grace. In an instant, the creature was torn apart mid-lunge, its body hitting the ground in pieces. Within seconds, every invading monster was systematically, mercilessly dismantled. No survivors, no struggle, just carnage. What remained was a gore-soaked ruin of limbs, blood, and silence. Outside, the smoke began to thin, but before anyone could even process what had happened, every glass window on campus shattered at once, exploding outward in a violent symphony. A blinding, radiant light washed over the battlefield, followed by an eerie, unnatural quiet. Baru returned to Suho's side, his killing intent fading as his gaze softened. Looking down at him, he spoke words weighted with history Suho couldn't yet grasp. "It has been a while, young monarch." The world shifted. The story snapped back to a much younger Suho, quiet, withdrawn, sitting in his room surrounded by sketchbooks, filled with obsessively detailed drawings of ants, massive ants, regal ants. A shadow fell over him. Baru stood there, holding a portrait the boy had drawn, of him. He praised the artwork gently, teasing the child with formal politeness, while very real tears welled in his eyes. The memory shattered. Suho jolted awake in a hospital bed, gasping. Later that day, his uncle stormed in, demanding answers, ranting about how Suho was now required to hire awakened bodyguards because the universe clearly had a personal vendetta against him. Suho tried to reassure him, but his mind was still spinning. 2 days. He'd been unconscious for 2 full days. The news played non-stop, a national disaster, endless casualty reports, the emergence of a horrifying new threat, mistburns, demonic entities capable of corrupting even hunters, turning them into slaughtering monsters. And hanging over it all was the Hunter Association's humiliatingly slow response. A delay that had cost countless lives. But one question echoed everywhere. Who or what had annihilated every monster inside the university? Suho turned off the TV. It hadn't been a dream. He had awakened. More than that, he was a player. Someone who could grow endlessly stronger. Still, something bothered him. He had been seconds from death. So how did he survive? A familiar, powerful voice echoed smugly in his mind. "Because I took care of those pests for you." Suho blinked. Then Baru materialized in the middle of the hospital room, bowing respectfully. His voice trembled with emotion as he greeted him again, eyes shining with tears at how much the boy had grown. Memories snapped into place. Fragmented pieces of childhood suddenly made sense. He remembered now Beru, one of the giant black ant shadows who had served as his absurdly overpowered babysitter. Then came the obvious question. Why had he forgotten? Beru explained he'd crossed dimensions just to see him again. When Suho asked why he looked smaller, Beru laughed, saying it was the price of burning enormous mana to cross worlds. In his true form, he was far more terrifying. Suho glanced at the system window, labeling Beru a private-grade shadow. Beru scoffed, cursing the system, declaring himself a martial-grade shadow capable of obliterating planets with a single punch. Suho thanked him. Beru scratched his cheek bashfully, admitting, almost shyly, that he was also an excellent healer. Then his tone shifted. Business time. Baru told Suho the real reason he'd come. His mission was to break the seal suppressing Suho's powers. But to his genuine surprise, Suho had already shattered it himself. Baru studied him for a moment, then gave a slow, approving nod. Pride flickered across his normally murderous face. His young monarch wasn't just surviving. He was progressing faster than expected. Curious, Suho asked if that vivid, hyper-real, game-like dream he'd experienced had anything to do with the seal. Baru's expression darkened. That wasn't a dream. It was a memory. Everything Suho had seen, every sensation, every fear, every impossible moment had actually happened. His father, my glorious king, had personally sealed away both Suho's powers and his memories, all to give his son a chance at a normal life, a quiet life, a life without monsters, gates, or cosmic bullshit breathing down his neck. The truth hit Suho like a freight train to the chest. He stood there, frozen, trying to process that his father wasn't just missing. He wasn't dead. He wasn't gone by accident, which led to the next obvious question. Was Baru connected to his father, the man who vanished without leaving a single trace behind? Baru's stern face softened. His voice dropped, steady but heavy. My glorious king did not abandon you. He left Earth itself. Suho blinked. Left? Baru explained. Jinwoo had gone to fight a war far beyond this planet, a war against the outer gods. Those same cosmic toddlers from the beginning of the nightmare, the ones now clawing at Earth by pushing their minions through the gates. To make it clearer, Baru summoned shadowy projections into the air. A lone warrior, standing against endless enemies, bloodied but unbroken, swinging his blades against impossible odds. That, Baru said, reverence filling his voice, is your father. He is protecting this world. Suho's heart started pounding like it was trying to escape his ribs. The gates, the monsters, the constant disasters, the entire fucked up state of reality. It wasn't random. It was a battlefield, and his father was fighting on the front lines of a cosmic war no one on Earth even understood. Then Suho asked the question he'd been avoiding. Was my mother with him? Baru shook his head slowly. He hadn't seen her. A cold knot twisted in Suho's stomach as he revealed something he'd never said out loud before. His mother had disappeared on the exact same day as his father. For years, he'd assumed they'd left together. Baru's eyes widened. Actual panic flickered across his face. If she hadn't gone with Jinwoo, then there was only one remaining possibility. She hadn't left willingly. She had been taken by the outer gods. That single realization cracked something deep inside Suho. His fists clenched until his nails bit into his palms. His jaw tightened, rage and grief boiling together into something sharp and unbreakable. No more waiting. If the outer gods were the reason his parents were gone, Then he would tear through heaven, hell, and whatever lay beyond just to drag them back. Beru nodded grimly. If Suho wanted even the smallest chance, he needed strength, and he needed it now. His father wasn't coming back anytime soon. But Suho didn't have to wait to act. Right on cue, the system responded. Quest triggered, Trial of the Shadow. The message was brutally clear. If Suho wanted to inherit his father's true power, he had to prove he wasn't just a kid playing hero. He had to step into the darkness and earn it. A mysterious black key materialized in front of him. The system instructed him to insert it into his own shadow. Suho didn't hesitate. The instant the key touched the darkness beneath his feet, the wall nearby ripped open, forming a swirling black portal, humming with raw, oppressive power. Beru placed a steady hand on Suho's shoulder. Claim the power that is rightfully yours, young monarch. For a split second, Suho hesitated. Shadow monarchs, outer gods, interstellar wars. It all sounded completely insane. But if this was his only path to his parents, he couldn't stop now. I need to level up. Behind him, Beru recalled the final command his king had given him. Break the seal. Return the boy's powers and memories. Protect him. For everything else, act as you see fit. As Suho stepped toward the unknown, Beru whispered quietly, "So you have entrusted the rest to me, my king." Straightening his posture, he spoke aloud with absolute conviction. I, Beru, shall remain at the young monarch's side. I will witness his growth. Together they stepped through the gate. Light flared, the portal snapped shut, and the world was left behind, unaware it had just witnessed destiny waking up. On the other side, Beru began explaining their surroundings. This place was the land of the dead, a domain no living being could enter without its master's permission. This was the Shadow Dungeon. Suho took it in. A ruined city stretched out before him, more post-apocalyptic wasteland than dungeon, crumbling buildings, endless darkness, and a suffocating familiarity, like a nightmare he'd once lived through but forgotten. A new quest appeared. Objective: survive for 4 hours in the Shadow Dungeon. Suho asked if he just had to stall until the timer ran out. Beru warned him otherwise. The time for suffering, he said calmly, is about to begin. Neither of them noticed the monster moving above them. Too late. The creature dropped, lunging for Suho's blind spot. Suho reacted instantly, spinning and driving a clean kick into its gut. The impact sent it reeling, though not dead. Suho frowned, curious, and looked to Beru. Beru explained that if a scout had already appeared, it meant more were nearby, and they definitely weren't here for sightseeing. Without hesitation, Suho moved in to finish it, before it could alert the others. Beru tried to warn him about recklessness, but Suho dismissed it. The goblin scout didn't even have a colored name tag. Low-level trash. Barely worth the stamina. He disarmed it in one smooth motion and crushed its skull with its own axe. Efficient, brutal. Turning back to Beru, Suho explained that uncolored names meant no real threat. The real danger only started when the colored tags showed up. Right on cue, a sound echoed through the ruins. Another goblin scout appeared, frantically signaling its allies. Suho's gaze hardened. A swarm was coming, and among them was a massive brute, hulking, violent, and marked with a colored name tag. The real fight had arrived. Suho asked Beru for backup. Beru shook his head. His mana was running low. The real reason, of course, was that Beru stepping in now would completely rob Suho of precious, hard-earned combat experience. Growth forged in blood mattered more than easy victories. Unfortunately, that very logical explanation did absolutely nothing to calm Suho's rapidly rising irritation. He shot Beru a sharp look. You're really not being helpful right now, you know that? Beru naturally said nothing. By then, the goblins had fully surrounded him. A tightening ring of green-skinned bodies closed in, crude weapons raised, snarls echoing through the ruined city. And then they charged, an ugly screaming wave of muscle, rusted steel, and bad intentions. Suho didn't panic. He activated a new skill, Ruler's Authority. Instantly, the axe from the first goblin he'd killed ripped itself off the ground and flew straight into his hand, as if the world itself had decided to cooperate. Suho moved, and suddenly his body felt lighter, sharper, faster. His swings were clean, almost unreal, guided by an invisible hand. Each strike cleaved through goblins with surgical precision, bodies dropping before they even realized they were dead. Then something whistled through the air, an arrow. Suho caught it mid-flight without even turning his head. He blinked. Archers. Fantastic. Without missing a beat, he snapped off a chunk of rubble, twisted a stray vine into place, and fashioned the world's jankiest bow in about 2 seconds flat. He loosed the arrow back. Perfect headshot. The goblin archer crumpled instantly. Beru watched the carnage in stunned silence. Pride swelled in his chest as memories surfaced. Even as a child, Suho had unconsciously wielded Ruler's Authority, a power meant not for balance, but for absolute domination. It had been sealed away in a peaceful world that didn't need it. But now, with the outer gods knocking on Earth's door, that power was waking up again, burning bright enough to push back the darkness. The fight only escalated. Suho carved his way forward like a blender set to maximum violence. Goblins dropped left and right, but one managed to slip behind him, plunging a blade into his back. Its smug grin lasted all of half a second, right up until Suho turned around and smashed its face in with a punch so brutal the skull practically folded inward. More goblins poured in, and then the ground shook. A massive figure stepped into view. The goblin centurion. Suho grabbed a dagger, waited for the charge, and hurled it with lightning speed. The blade tore through goblins like bowling pins before finally slamming into the centurion's chest. The battlefield dissolved into pure chaos. Steel clashing, blood spraying, bodies flying. Suho was bleeding, exhausted, running on fumes, and he had never felt more alive. He refused to back down. Weapon after weapon, strike after strike, he kept going, lunging back into the fray until eventually the noise stopped. Silence fell. The ruined city was carpeted with goblin corpses. 4 brutal hours had passed. Suho stood alone, alive. Baru applauded, slow and deliberate, proud, but not surprised. Then came the rewards. Suho opened his system notifications and froze. A runestone, shadow extraction. For once, Baru was genuinely shocked. Even he hadn't expected this dumbass to unlock such a core ability so early. Suho scratched his head. Honestly, this feels like cheating. The system keeps spoon-feeding me skills. Baru explained that the system was based on the same framework his father had used, a support program designed to ensure the young monarch's survival and growth. Hearing that, Suho didn't hesitate. He accepted the reward. The system instructed him to absorb the runestone by breaking it. He crushed it in his hand, and a new window appeared. Skill acquired. Shadow extraction. No mana required. Creates shadow soldiers from dead bodies. Success rate depends on enemy strength and time since death. For the first time, Suho truly grasped how terrifying his power could become. An army, his own army. Beru elaborated, explaining that this ability was the foundation of his father's legacy. With it, Suho could turn the fallen into shadow soldiers, beings just like Beru himself. Suho frowned. Isn't this just necromancy? Also, it meant he could only extract things weaker than himself, and summoner types were notoriously looked down on, mostly because they were associated with creepy weirdos who talked to skulls. Still, curiosity won. He tried the skill on a nearby goblin corpse. The system asked for a command. Suho sighed and went with the classic. Arise. Dark energy surged. Moments later, 3 shadowy goblins rose, labeled Level 1, Common Grade Shadow Goblins. So this is it? Suho muttered, unimpressed. Beru explained that newly extracted shadows were always weaker than in life. Suho also noticed they were smaller, like sad, shrink-wrapped versions of their former selves. Worse, the system informed him they'd disappear after a day unless he had a storage skill. Seeing Suho's disappointment, Beru quickly added that shadow abilities scaled with level and intelligence, something Suho currently lacked in abundance, meaning this pathetic skill would eventually become terrifyingly strong. That helped. Satisfied for now, and absolutely starving, Suho decided it was time to leave the dungeon. Later, back in his hospital room, Suho practically vibrated with joy as he devoured a warm tray of food, convinced it was the greatest meal ever created. As he ate, Beru stepped forward, his tone turning serious. They had 3 missions. First, protect Earth from otherworldly beasts, which was just a fancy way of saying hunt monsters and clear dungeons. As Suho grew stronger, Earth would become safer, just like his father had done. Second, find Suho's mother, by any means necessary. Baru admitted there was no direct trail, but hunting the Outer God's beasts might eventually reveal clues. Third, and critically important, restore Baru's full strength. To do that, he needed to absorb magical power and knowledge by eating enemies. Inefficient, but necessary. Suho nodded. So basically, more dungeons. Exactly. As Suho stood, ready to move, Baru added one final detail. To enter dungeons officially, Suho needed a hunter qualification, which meant a visit to the Hunter Association and a magical power measurement. The grind was about to begin. Suho nodded slowly, pretending to look calm while his brain was doing backflips. He had awakened. He was growing stronger by the hour. He had a literal system feeding him power like an illegal buff patch. So naturally, one question burned in his mind. What rank am I getting? S rank? Maybe something freaky that didn't even exist yet? At the Hunter Association, a bored-looking staff member slapped a measuring device on him, stared at the numbers, and announced the result with the emotional investment of someone reading milk prices. Magical power, 46. E rank awakened. Silence. And that was it. The lowest possible tier. Rock bottom. The rank you get before the system politely asks if you'd like to reconsider your life choices. Suho walked outside, the words E rank echoing in his head like an insult carved into stone. The weight of that pathetic number pressed down on him harder than any monster had so far. Baru, sensing the internal meltdown, explained calmly. Hunter ranks were decided almost entirely by raw magical power, and since Suho had been dumping every last stat point into literally everything except magic, this outcome was basically inevitable. Suho exhaled. So, can an E-rank trash like me actually protect Earth? Baru didn't even hesitate. He reminded Suho that he was the young monarch, blessed with a broken leveling system that made rankings irrelevant. Hunter ranks were for peasants who didn't get stronger mid-fight. Then Baru's expression shifted as he recalled something unpleasant. Life as an E-rank hunter was hell. Low pay, low respect, high mortality, basically NPC difficulty. That's when Suho's eyes lit up. Dungeon raids were divided into teams: assault team, recovery team, mining team, and those last two? They accepted E-rank hunters. It was his opening. That's how Suho ended up inside an actual dungeon, wiping sweat from his brow, while standing next to Lim Dok-hyun, his former art instructor, who also happened to be an E-rank hunter. Suho bowed slightly and thanked him for the opportunity, explaining that he'd only recently awakened. Lim, however, looked like a man carrying a truckload of guilt. He apologized repeatedly for what happened during the university incident, how he'd run away, how powerless he'd felt. Suho waved it off. You're an E-rank too. The association literally tells hunters like us to run for our lives if things go south. Lim froze. Wait, you're only E-rank? Suho nodded. Magical powers 46. Pretty bad, even by E-rank standards. Lim blinked hard. He vividly remembered Suho charging a monster on the rooftop while everyone else was screaming and running. An E-rank doing that wasn't just impressive, it was borderline insane. Right then, Baru appeared beside them, his voice echoing only in Suho's mind. The young monarch is indeed exceptional. Lim turned his head, and his soul promptly left his body. His eyes locked onto Baru. Pure primal terror seized him as he staggered back, voice cracking as he screamed about a monster being right there. Suho shot Baru a death glare. Why the hell did you suddenly appear, you idiot? Baru replied calmly. The monarch is as weak as a larva. I must remain nearby. Lim stared between them, trying to process reality without his brain overheating. Did you awaken as a summoner-type hunter? Suho, deciding that explaining Shadow Monarch lore would probably cause a medical emergency, just nodded. Lim laughed nervously. You're lucky. Most E-ranks don't even get skills. All I got was a running skill. Suho smirked. That explains how you escaped so cleanly. Lim's face darkened, until Suho added quickly, Relax, I'm kidding. Baru praised Suho again, and Suho finally looked around, realizing this was his first real dungeon. He wondered if the assault team deeper inside was having a good time. They were not. Deep in the dungeon, the assault team stood over the corpses of the last beasts they'd fought, mostly wolves. Too easy, too quiet. One hunter muttered that even low-tier beasts could drop magic crystals, so they had to keep pushing. The captain tried to sound confident, reminding them that they wouldn't know what waited ahead until they reached the end. Then someone shouted from behind, Captain, there's something in the side path. They followed the voice and stopped dead. A massive ancient ruin loomed in the darkness. No monsters, no readings, no detection pings, just silence. The unease skyrocketed. Some speculated it might be treasure instead of a boss. And there, half buried in rubble, stood an old sword embedded in the ground. The captain approached cautiously. We'll need to appraise it, but judging by its aura, this thing's valuable. He warned them about traps, but a confident C-rank tank, Kim Young-jin, scoffed. Even if it's trapped, I can handle it. He grabbed the sword. Instantly, it glowed crimson. The ground turned red like it was bleeding. The dungeon trembled as eyes began opening across the floor itself. And yet, like the absolute dumbass he was, Kim Young-jin pulled the blade free. The captain sighed in relief. Looks like there were no traps after... He stopped. Kim Young-jin's eyes were glowing red. Without warning, the possessed tank turned and sliced the captain clean in half. A cold, ancient voice echoed. Who dares claim the Fang Monarch's blade? Inside Kim Young-jin's mind, the command rang out. Kill them all. Meanwhile, the support team was completely oblivious. 3 shadow goblins were mining magic crystals with terrifying efficiency. Lim stared, his brain refusing to cooperate. Summoners usually controlled 1, maybe 2 creatures. Suho had 3 goblins, plus the massive nightmare-inducing Shadow Knight that had appeared earlier. 4 summons, unheard of. Suho stood nearby, reflecting. Shadow extraction normally required fresh corpses, but he cheated by reusing remains from his personal shadow space. Perfect labor force. 0 complaints. Shadow extraction is really convenient, he muttered. Baru replied flatly, Please do not praise me while assigning me manual labor. Then his tone hardened. We didn't come here to play miners, young monarch. We came to level up. Suho nodded. He planned to power level and then request a reevaluation from the Hunter Association. He also hadn't forgotten their secondary objective, restoring Baru's strength. Fragments of low-grade magic stones were scattered across the cave floor. Suho glanced down at them and nudged a few toward Baru with his foot. They might help restore your power. Baru didn't argue. He simply opened his jaws and consumed the crystal shards. Then his body stiffened. He froze mid-chew, eyes snapping toward Suho. I just sensed the presence of a monarch. Suho's heart skipped. You mean my father? Baru shook his head. No, if it were your father, my power would have been fully restored the instant I sensed him. This presence is different. His gaze sharpened as he scanned the dungeon's energy. It's likely the Beast Monarch. Near the entrance, a miner stiffened as a deep rumble echoed from the tunnel the assault team had entered. He turned slowly. From the shadows, 3 blood-red eyes opened. A monstrous beast stepped forward, its massive form wrapped in thick darkness. Bloodlust radiated from it in suffocating waves, jagged teeth glinting beneath a low snarl. Panic tore through the mining team. One of the miners, driven by pure idiotic desperation, swung his pickaxe. The beast caught it in its jaws. Crunch. Metal shattered like a twig. The man stumbled back, frozen in terror. Then something blurred between them. Suho surged forward, gripping his own pickaxe. With a sharp swing, he struck the beast across the skull, forcing it back just long enough to create distance. "Run," he said coldly. The miners didn't need to be told twice. They turned and fled for their lives. Suho planted his feet, eyes locked on the beast as its oppressive aura thickened the air. He recognized it, a steel fang lichen, a monster on par with the D rank he'd fought at the university. But this time, he wasn't alone. Behind him, Lim Do-kyun stood frozen, radiating pure, unfiltered panic. Their eyes met. Suho offered him a choice without words. "Run or stay." Lim swallowed hard. His voice trembled, but held. "I won't run away by myself anymore." Suho nodded. "Help me if I'm in danger." With a fluid motion, 3 shadow goblins rose from the ground. From his inventory, Suho drew a dark, curved blade harvested from the shadow dungeon, far deadlier than any pickaxe. Lim's brain completely stalled. Not only was Suho summoning monsters, he was summoning weapons. Before Lim could even process that reality, Suho moved. He vanished in a burst of speed. The lichen barely reacted before the blade flashed. One clean surgical strike. The beast collapsed. Lim's jaw hit the floor. The goblin shadows bounced in place, celebrating the swift, brutal kill. Suho raised his hand. "Arise!" Darkness surged. The corpse trembled. Another lichen lunged from the shadows, but this time, 2 blades met it. Suho deflected the strike. The newly born lichen shadow countered with a crushing blow, sending the monster staggering. From the tunnel's edge, Baru watched in silence, pride unmistakable in his gaze. The young monarch is already adapting to shadow combat. Suho's focus sharpened as a realization struck him. Extraction and summoning didn't consume mana. As his magical power increased, so would the number of allowable extractions. He could build an army. Driven by that thought, he struck down another lichen. "Arise!" Another shadow rose. Do-kyun stood frozen, barely breathing, as Suho faced the final beast, defeating it without hesitation and issuing the command again. "Arise!" Do-kyun stared at the impossible. This wasn't E-rank strength. This wasn't normal. Suho noticed his expression and offered a small amused smile. "I'm just a really good E-rank." Do-kyun's thoughts came to a dead stop. A false ranker, someone who intentionally registered lower. Suho's eyes flickered. A system notification appeared. "Quest alert. An entity with murderous intent is approaching. Eliminate the threat to secure your safety." Suho scanned the battlefield. Every lichen was dead, yet the system insisted. One enemy remained. The air grew colder. Footsteps emerged from the smoke-filled tunnel. Lim squinted. "That guy, he's part of the raid party, but something's wrong." Suho stepped forward to intercept. Too late. In a moment of reckless, idiotic bravery, Lim rushed ahead. The man lunged. A blade tore through the air, aimed straight for Do-kyun's chest. Suho moved on instinct. He grabbed Do-kyun by the collar and yanked him back just as the blade missed by inches. As Do-kyun collapsed in shock, Suho raised his hand. Shadow wolves burst forward, snarling as they charged the attacker. But Suho's instincts screamed, "This isn't normal." Dragging the unconscious liability that was Lim Do-kyun to safety, Suho focused on the attacker. This wasn't a hunter having a bad day. This bastard was possessed. Then he saw it, a glowing red name hovering above the man's head. Suho's chest tightened. He'd seen that before, at the university. A red name meant only one thing. "You are about to get fucked." He glanced at Baru. "This doesn't mean it's a monarch like my father, right?" Baru answered instantly, voice grim. "It carries great power, but no, not a monarch. However, that does not mean you can handle it right now." Suho didn't flinch. The system had given him the quest, which meant it was possible. And more than anything, he needed to get stronger. He needed to reach his father. The possessed hunter roared, tearing through Suho's newly summoned shadow soldiers with horrifying ease. Limbs were severed, bodies dissolved into smoke. One after another, they fell. Yet Suho didn't retreat. His stance stayed firm, eyes burning with resolve. He would win, and he would grow stronger, right here, right now. From the shadows, Baru watched, something close to awe flickering in his gaze. Despite everything thrown at him, he never runs. For a moment, Baru saw it clearly, the echo of the Shadow Monarch himself, reflected in Suho's still developing form. Baru stepped closer. "The thing's true body isn't the hunter," he said calmly. "It's the sword. Sever the arm and separate it from the host. Without the blade, it won't be able to move." Suho nodded once. With a sharp gesture, he summoned his shadow wolves. The possessed hunter sensed the surge of shadow energy and released a deafening roar as the 3 wolves lunged. One of them clamped its jaws directly onto the cursed blade. The weapon stopped mid-swing. Suho's eyes widened as the other wolves, cut down moments earlier, began pulling themselves back together, shadows knitting their bodies anew. Shadow soldiers are spiritual bodies, Beru said. As long as you supply mana, they'll regenerate endlessly. Then he glanced at Suho. So, he added dryly, what do you think of these powers now, you dumbass? Before Suho could answer, the possessed hunter unleashed a violent sweep. Shadow soldiers were erased in an instant, annihilated so completely they didn't even have time to regenerate. Suho's voice faltered. Then what's so fucking great about shadow soldiers if they just die? Beru's expression hardened. His reply was merciless. They died because your mana is weak, young monarch. A beat. In other words, skill issue. The possessed hunter suddenly laughed. Then it spoke. How can an insignificant being like you wield the shadow monarch's power? Suho's eyes narrowed. It can talk. Before he could react, Beru's voice exploded with fury. Watch your tongue, he snapped, killing intent bleeding through every word. You dare disrespect the heir of my glorious king, the one who shares his blood? The enemy stiffened. Recognition burned in its eyes. The Shadow Monarch's bloodline, it growled. To think I would encounter it here. Its aura flared violently. I declare you the sworn enemy of the Fang Monarch. Suho responded the only reasonable way he knew how. He hurled a dagger. The possessed warrior deflected it effortlessly. Without pause, Suho summoned weapon after weapon from his inventory, launching them in a relentless storm. Steel screamed through the air. The enemy batted each one aside like trash. Just as expected, Suho muttered. A red-named monster wouldn't fall to attacks like this. His eyes swept the battlefield. Weapons littered the ground. Suho raised his hand. One by one, the scattered blades began to tremble. With a sharp command, he unleashed everything at once. Beru watched, admiration filling his gaze. This wasn't desperation, it was instinct. Suho wasn't consciously activating ruler's authority. He was using it naturally, a power he'd been unknowingly wielding since birth. But it still wasn't enough. The possessed hunter roared and shattered the entire volley with a single, overwhelming swing. The shockwave rippled through the tunnel. Suho charged in. Sword met blade. Crack. His weapon snapped clean in half. A flicker of panic flashed through him. If even goblin-forged weapons can't last one hit, he barely dodged the counterstrike, body moving on pure adrenaline. One mistake, and it was over. The enemy sneered. Why do you keep running, coward? Just like the Shadow Monarch you idolize. Always hiding behind his shadows. The words struck deep, but Suho forced himself to stay calm. Bait. Right now, he couldn't win head-on. If only I had more power. His thoughts flashed back to the hospital. Beru's explanation echoed in his mind. The seal hadn't weakened him. It had suppressed him since birth. What he was experiencing now wasn't regression, but reawakening. The power he'd wielded in the tower had been temporary, a glimpse of what he could become. Then it clicked. He remembered how he'd fought back then. Close combat, hand to hand. Shadow soldiers are spiritual bodies. As long as there's mana, they can regenerate infinitely. His gaze snapped to Beru. If Beru could alter his form, why not the others? Suho summoned a shadow wolf. The enemy laughed, mocking him for resorting to another pathetic trick, and lunged forward, blade raised. Suho dodged, creating just enough space. The cursed sword came crashing down, and Suho moved. The shadow wolf didn't attack, it merged. Shadow flooded his arm, fusing with his limb. The blade struck. Clang. It didn't cut. The enemy froze. Its smirk shattered into confusion. Suho raised his arm. A dark, armored gauntlet, formed from condensed shadow, had blocked the strike completely. He glanced at it, commenting dryly, guess the Steel Fang lichen really lives up to its name. The clawed gauntlet held firm. Freed from the pressure, Suho grinned. This changes everything. With a low breath, he muttered, close combat is more than enough. A system notification flashed. Skill update. Shadow extraction has leveled up. Level 2. New ability unlocked. Form change. Suho's smile widened. The real fight had just begun. Steel and shadow collided as Suho and the possessed hunter crashed into a brutal close-range duel, neither yielding an inch. From the darkness, Beru watched in stunned silence, weaponizing a shadow soldier. Even the Shadow Monarch himself had mastered this art through countless battles. Yet Suho, this fledgling monarch, had instinctively unraveled the next step on his own. No teacher, no guidance, only combat sense, raw authority, and terrifying adaptability. And that could only mean one thing. Suho was a natural-born prodigy, an evolving monster. Blow after blow crashed into the possessed enemy, Suho driving him straight into the dungeon wall. Stone cracked, dust exploded outward. Before Suho could finish it, the enemy staggered back to its feet, refusing to fall. Suho didn't hesitate. He surged forward, and the scattered weapons littering the ground answered his call, lifting into the air like a raging storm before crashing down all at once. This was his moment. His fists, cloaked in dense shadow, hammered into the enemy again and again, each strike carrying the weight of his will. The possessed warrior never found time to recover. And with one final, merciless punch, it ended. Silence fell. Suho exhaled slowly, a faint tension still lingering in his chest. The red-named opponent had been dangerous, but not unbeatable. Beru said nothing. Pride flickered faintly in his glowing eyes. As Suho steadied his breathing, He reflected on the fight. At the very least, he'd gained something valuable, an entirely new way to fight. A system notification appeared. Skill acquired. Storm Slash. Suho's eyes lit up. Exactly the kind of reward he'd hoped for. His gaze shifted to the cursed blade lying nearby. The Fang blade. As he approached, a whisper of defiance echoed inside his mind. How could I be defeated by the bloodline of the Shadow Monarch? This is humiliating. The sword seethed as it sensed him drawing closer. This isn't over. Humans are greedy. Let him touch me. I'll devour him the moment he does. Suho wrapped his hand around the hilt. Another notification appeared. Item acquired. Raycan's Fang. He weighed the blade in his hand and smirked. Looks way better than those goblin swords. Inside the weapon, its spirit raged. How can a blade inheriting the Fang Monarch's power fail to dominate a mere human? Then another alert flashed. Blessing acquired. Great Shaman Kandandiaris' blessing. Suho steadied himself, shadow energy surging as he activated Storm Slash. A massive arc of destruction erupted outward, obliterating everything in its path. The damage was impressive, but Suho frowned as his mana was completely drained in a single strike. Staring at the blade, he muttered, "I like the power." Beru replied calmly that Suho's shadow abilities would eventually surpass this by thousands of times. Nearby, Lim groaned as consciousness slowly returned. His vision swam as he looked up at Suho, who stood calm and composed. What the hell happened?" Lim asked. Suho considered the explanation, then shook his head. "It's a long story. Let's talk on the way out." Outside the gate, Suho paused and looked back at the portal. There might still be survivors inside. Without hesitation, he turned and stepped back in. Lim could only watch, his thoughts racing. An E-rank summoner. It sounded unimpressive, but it didn't matter. What mattered was that Suho was saving lives. Back inside, more steel fang lichens emerged from the darkness, eyes glowing with malice. Suho met them head on, tearing through them with sheer physical power. But something felt off. The Fang blade's damage had dropped sharply. Suho questioned it. The sword answered coldly, declaring its refusal to cooperate with the Shadow Monarch's bloodline. Beru mocked it mercilessly, calling its power petty. The blade snapped back. "What kind of hunter seeks prey stronger than themselves?" Beru replied with pride. "The young lord defeated you, and you were relatively strong." As the two bickered like an old married couple, Suho sighed. A talking bug, now a talking sword. This is getting ridiculous. Then his focus snapped elsewhere. He moved swiftly through the dungeon, stopping dead when he reached a grim chamber. The sanctuary of the Fangs. Hunter corpses littered the floor in heavy silence. Suho's eyes widened. The sword erupted in furious rage. "The Monarch of Shadows is the one who slew my master, the Fang Monarch. If my strength had not been corrupted, I would have torn you apart." Despite the hatred, Suho remained calm. "My father fought to protect Earth," he said evenly, "just like you fought to protect this sanctuary." He stepped closer, gaze unwavering. "But what doesn't make sense is why you believe you must fight me just because I carry his blood." His voice hardened. "If your purpose is to protect this place, then isn't it foolish to turn against the son of the one who already defeated the Fang Monarch?" Silence pressed down heavily. Suho tightened his grip on the hilt. "I'm looking for my parents. They were separated by invaders from the outer gods, and I'll do whatever it takes to bring them back." He lifted the blade slightly. "This sanctuary won't survive an outer gods invasion alone. But if you help me, I'll help you protect this place." The sword hesitated. "Shadow and Fang," Suho said quietly. "Let's fight together." The scene shifted to a quiet cafe. A reporter sat across from Lim Deok-yoon. "Can you tell us what happened in the D-rank dungeon yesterday?" Lim nodded slowly. Even if Suho was only an E-rank, he deserved recognition. This was his chance to repay that debt. So he told them everything. That evening, an article spread rapidly online. A full strike squad annihilated. A D-rank dungeon turned into a slaughterhouse. And a lone E-rank hunter who charged into the chaos instead of running. Witnesses told the same story. Ordinary people, fellow hunters, survivors. They all remembered one name, Sung Suho, the E-rank who didn't run. Elsewhere, inside the Black Tortoise Guild's management office, Lee Young-ho leaned back in his chair, tapping a pen against the table. "We should recruit a few more porters," he said casually. A staff member nodded. But Young-ho slid a candidate profile across his tablet instead. His eyes gleamed. The staffer's voice shook as he read the report aloud. "An E-rank hunter evacuated a full mining team, fought off magic beasts, and carried wounded strike team members to safety." Eyebrows shot up. An E-rank. Young-ho's eyes narrowed, sharp as daggers. "Contact him now. This is a hero rising from the E-ranks. It'll be the headline of the year." Minutes later, the staffer dropped his phone like it burned him. "Did Hunter Sung Suho respond?" Young-ho asked. "Yes," the staffer stammered. But he declined the invitation. Young-ho's brain short-circuited. An E-rank just turned down the Black Tortoise Guild? The audacity, the impossibility. Meanwhile, Suho stared at his phone, letting out a calm sigh as unread messages piled up like a mountain. Guild invitations, scouting requests, and more. "Since the dungeon," he told Beru, "I've been swamped with offers. Baru's tone hummed with pride. Naturally, young monarch, Suho smirked, unimpressed. Most just wanted him as a collector, a glorified errand boy. He already knew why he couldn't join a guild yet. Freedom, power, growth. Chains would only slow him down. He turned his attention back to the real prize. Shall we continue with Raycon's Fang? He remembered extending the offer to the sword. Shadow and Fang, let's fight together. At first, the weapon hesitated, confused by Suho's sheer audacity. But clarity dawned. The shadow could be an ally, not a threat. Finally, it agreed. With one condition. Suho had to take it to another sanctuary of the Monarch of Fangs. Now, standing before the blade, Suho asked, "Do you know where the next sanctuary is?" The sword pulsed, alive with confidence. "I can sense it, no matter how far. But something's wrong. The gate, it's gone." Suho's jaw hardened. A dungeon break. The sanctuary had transformed into a field-type dungeon. Untamed, corrupted, beast-infested. Humans hadn't touched it in decades. He quickly typed a message to his uncle, detailing the new objective. Then he turned to Baru. "Let's go. Time to find the sanctuary of the Monarch of Fangs." Up in the mountains, silence reigned. The world felt paused. Suho stood before a jagged, rusted gate carved into the cliffside. The Hyena Guild's emblem glared down like a middle finger. Below, a warning, private territory. Trespassers will not be spared. Suho didn't flinch. Not a twitch, not a blink. He radiated main character energy on steroids. Beside him, the talking sword Fang hummed, confirming this was their cursed destination, crawling with D-list hunters masquerading as monsters. From the shadows, Baru appeared, playing the party's fun police, trying to convince Suho to turn back. "Focus on leveling," he urged. Suho said nothing. His gaze landed on a surveillance camera. With a flick of his hand, it exploded in a spectacular rain of sparks and metal. No hesitation, no mercy. He stepped forward, fog thickening around him like it had a mind of its own, writhing, coiling, threatening. Fang's voice cut through the gloom, dropping knowledge bombs. "Listen, dumbass," it said. "This isn't a morning mist, chaos magic, interdimensional breach-level shit. Creatures like me slip in from God knows where." Suho just raised an eyebrow. "Need a brain to understand that?" "Not mine." He shrugged. "If the monsters are strong, it means they take longer to cross over." And then, the freaks came, twisted, clawed, bloodlust incarnate, charging without warning. Suho didn't even draw his sword. Nah, fists first. Fang's spirit practically vibrated with panic. "Use me, damn it!" Suho's first punch landed like a thunderclap to the jaw. Beast went flying. Next one? Worse. Every hit perfect, brutal, surgical. Then, the real flex. Suho didn't even touch the rest. With a mental command, he lifted the remaining creatures like furniture and flung them aside. One hand raised, Fang's energy erupted. Skill activated. Storm slash. Boom! A hurricane of blades tore through the mist, shredding monsters like vegetables. Limbs hit the ground. Howls echoed, but Suho's hand flared again, dark, demonic. Shadow magic surged, coalescing into a jagged, massive gauntlet. He charged, fists flying, chaos incarnate, bones cracked like twigs, shadows swirled like a storm. And in the middle of all that, calm as ever, he summoned 5 shadow soldiers. Baru's jaw metaphorically hit the floor. That looks like a monarch's army, but there was something else, something new stirring in Suho. The storm wasn't just destruction, it was evolution. Before anyone could get poetic, Suho snapped, "Shut up. No history lesson. We don't have time." The sky obeyed, turning a moody, brooding gray, the wind wailing like it could feel Suho's rage. From the cover of the trees, Suho and Baru spotted it, a sketchy facility up ahead. Dim lights flickered against the night like dying embers. Dead center, a gate, guarded like a villain's cheap movie set. Civilians moved nervously, their fear palpable. Then headlights cut through the mist. A truck screeched to a halt. Guards jumped out, chains in hand. In seconds, they yanked people from the vehicle like livestock and shoved them into cages. And then he saw her, a woman trembling but burning with defiance. That was it, that spark. Suho's chest tightened. The switch flipped. Baru muttered a warning from the shadows, but Suho didn't wait. He vanished into a shadow of pure rage, crossing the field in an instant. One punch landed so hard on a thug that the guy forgot his own name. Panic erupted. Guards froze, screaming, confused, useless. This was enemy turf, illegal, dangerous, risky. Suho paused, just a flicker. But then his eyes turned cold, shadow-infused blue. His aura exploded outward. The ground cracked, air bent. Shadows around him writhed like pissed-off demons. The Hyena Guild lunged, roaring in defiance. But Suho didn't even flinch. They moved in slow motion. One swing, evaded, one counterpunch. The thug went airborne, out cold. Just a D-rank annoyance, nothing more. With a single fluid motion, Suho leapt high into the air. Mid-flight, he twisted his body perfectly. A double roundhouse kick connected with the side of another thug's head, sending him crashing unconscious, before even hitting the ground. Baru hovered silently, jaw metaphorically on the floor. This was pure, untamed power. Suho? Barely winded. Every D-rank in that facility was just background noise. He opened his status window, checking the grind results. Level 16, clean, too clean. Something felt off. Baru, narrating like a proud mentor, commented, "Very clean finish, young monarch." The captives, frozen in shock, probably thought they'd stepped onto a movie set. "Are you from the Hunter Association?" one whispered. Suho shrugged, voice steady but commanding. "Find shelter. Stay safe." And they obeyed immediately. But Suho's instincts screamed. Something was wrong. The aura led him to a half-buried garage nearby, the kind of place true nightmare documentaries are filmed. The door creaked like it hadn't opened in decades. Inside, horror incarnate, empty cages, chains, stripped clothing, scattered pills, not just for humans. Baru floated in, antennas twitching, sensing the same twisted energy. Deeper inside, Suho froze, eyes locked on a small, trembling figure. It looked like a puppy, innocent, fragile, but the aura, different, wrong. Fang's voice broke the silence, low and grave. "That isn't a dog, it's a wolf cub, the last heir of the monarch of Fangs, the only survivor. All others wiped out when the shadow monarch, your father, ended that chapter. Only this one fragile child remains. Its survival was the final move." Suho crouched beside the pup. Even in its weakened state, its aura hummed with dormant power. Baru's voice drifted in. "What will you do, young monarch?" Before Suho could respond, a jolt of energy slammed him like a cold punch. Something massive, furious, and beastly stepped into the light, eyes glowing red, not at Suho, but at the utter incompetence of the Hyena Guild. The figure moved with unholy speed, each step cracking the earth beneath it. Fang's voice roared through the chaos. That is Broky, the ancient guardian of the Fang monarch's heir. A protector, turned twisted by his own purpose. Without warning, Broky lunged, claws slicing through the air like divine judgment. Suho barely dodged. The air where he had stood tore itself apart. Broky struck again, descending like a living wrecking ball, red fury blazing from his claws. The impact split the ground, sending stone flying. Even Baru cried out, wings flaring as he raced to assist. Amid the rubble, Suho pushed himself up, bruised and bleeding, grinning like a man who just found joy in chaos. He waved off Baru's concern, eyes fixed on the system message, confirming his suspicion. Broky's energy was corrupted, ancient, and deadly. Broky now hovered over Fang's sword, clutching the wolf pup like it was a lifeless trophy. Fang's voice cut through the storm, thunderous and enraged. "Do you even know what you're doing, Broky? That child, the last heir of the monarch of Fangs. You were entrusted to protect them. Suho's fists clenched. Shadows around him writhed, forming jagged, lethal claws. This fight was about to get real. Broky didn't give a damn. Loyalty? Gone. Replaced by some twisted survival of the fittest obsession. He spat venom about the weak, about who deserved to live and who didn't. And then, like the villain he'd fully become, he admitted it. He'd been feeding on the pup's blood, draining the last spark of a once great legacy to fuel his own sick ascent. Fang's rage shattered the air, booming like a storm. "I will end you, Broky," he bellowed, voice cracking across the battlefield like thunder. But Broky, he just sneered, poking the bear, mocking the bloodline of the monarch of Fangs, spitting insults about Raikon, calling Raikon weak, crowing madly that he would be the next monarch. Before his delusions could fully land, a flash of pure, unfiltered power ripped through the chaos. Suho moved, blade in hand, soaked in raw, unbridled rage. The slash cut through the battlefield like a god warning mortals. "Do not underestimate me." Broky never even saw it coming. Mid-charge, the strike landed clean, halting the beast in its tracks. Baru swooped in, wings flaring, and snatched the pup from the chaos. He vanished from the kill zone before Broky could react. Suho followed through, another slash carving a deep, fiery gash into Broky's side. Sparks flew. Shadow and Fang's alliance, forged in necessity, was being tested in real time. Broky's red aura flared, crackling with pure murderous intent, and then a system notification blinked into existence. Emergency quest, hunt the hyena, and secure the monarch's heir. Baru clutched the pup, practically vibrating with restraint. He wanted to tear Broky apart, but this wasn't his fight. This was Suho's stage. The screams of the Hyena Guild's captives echoed behind them. A pathetic, desperate chorus. Suho didn't care. This was a main character moment, and he had a story to write with his fists. Broky lunged, faster than sanity would allow. Jaws snapping, claws tearing at the air, blood spraying like rain, limbs hitting dirt before anyone could even scream. Suho's eyes locked on the carnage. Half a second of disgust, not fear. This wasn't just power. It was utter, merciless savagery. He charged, blade aimed for the beast's heart. Broky caught it, bare-handed, paper. Suho gritted his teeth. Broky growled, dripping venom. The strong decide who lives or dies. And then, the battlefield shattered. Suho went flying like a crash test dummy, slamming into rubble with enough force to level a car. Dust and debris whirled around him. But he didn't hesitate. He rocketed back up, missile-like, eyes locked. Broky stomped down, bracing himself. But Suho was already airborne, a force of judgment, incarnate. Blade met flesh. Steel cut into corrupted muscle. Blood sprayed. Broky laughed. "That's all you've got?" Then the grin snapped. Pain surged through him. a brutal backstab. Suho's blades danced, eyes blazing with a feral, unwavering focus. This was his battlefield. Fang flared beside him, roaring through the chaos. Where's the oath, the honor, the protector? Dark lightning twisted across Broky's eyes, warping his mind. Desperation cracked his face. He clawed at the spinning sword, screaming no, trying to crush it, trying to erase the truth. He never cared about loyalty. He only cared about power. He lunged, fist cocked, demonic rage incarnate. Impact, Suho's gut. Bones groaned under the pressure. Pain poured like liquid fire. Lungs burned. He dropped to one knee. Then a single searing memory of his father flashed. The man who'd eaten gods for breakfast and never backed down. Suho's aura erupted, brighter, hotter, wilder than ever. Energy spiked until the air itself cracked. And then, with a battle cry that made the heavens tremble, Suho hurled himself forward, every ounce of power concentrated in one strike, smashing into Broky's chest. The blow shattered every defense the beast had. A shockwave tore down Broky's spine like divine punishment. Above, Baru hovered, tense, silent. Fang's sword hit the ground, shattered, blue crystal flickering on 1% life. Broky couldn't move an inch. His mind raced in panic, trapped in the aftermath of his hubris. Suho wondered if this was the end. Every ounce of legacy, every shred of hope, every damn family tree, it all felt dumped squarely on his shoulders. And yet Fang, stubborn as an ancient war dog, refused to fade. Even broken, the blade clawed for every last spark of life. Then it happened. The little wolf pup, tiny, trembling, fragile, felt the dying pulse of Fang. Their wills collided, fused, and suddenly the pup leveled up. Not a normal growth, not a quiet step forward. This was a full-blown, rage-fueled awakening. Fang's final gift, a surge of pure power, transferred, coursing through the pup like lightning through steel. Meanwhile, Broky was still having his fun, swatting Suho around like a rag doll. Every swing slowed, every hit left him staggering, his HP bar screaming in agony, vision darkened as if the world itself had muted. One more strike, and Suho would have been ground meat, but he refused to give in. He glared at the sky, searching for a sign, a spark, anything to remind him why he was still standing. Broky hovered above him like a sadistic schoolyard bully, relishing the beatdown. Suho's mind raced, heart pounding, whispering, how the hell am I supposed to beat that? Then, the air itself seemed to split. Dust, light, and shadow collided. The pup stepped forward. Not the timid creature from moments ago. No, this was Fang incarnate, fused into a furious living storm of claws, fangs, and spectral energy. Every muscle burned, every hair stood on end. Broky's eyes went wide. That aura, it was Fang's, pure and untamed. The earlier wound, the one Broky inflicted, pulsed like a cursed bruise. Broky finally understood. He was done. The wolf growled, claws digging into the earth, ready to rip and run. Suho, bloodied and battered, rose to his feet, chest heaving, eyes blazing like molten cobalt. His will wasn't just his own anymore. It was theirs, Wolf and Monarch united. Then the system pinged. New notification? Fang's descendant recognizes your struggle. Recruit as companion? Suho's gaze locked on the pup. Murder and loyalty burned in those eyes. Not a pet, a legacy, a living symbol that Fang's will had survived. He accepted. A shockwave ripped through the battlefield. Memories, fury, pride, and pain collided in Suho's mind. Fang's final image lingered, a cloaked figure, fading like mist. One message remained, etched in steel. Strength is the only way forward. Then silence. Not empty silence. The kind that prepares the storm. Broky, once untouchable, now trembled. He stared at the figure who had just flipped the game board, voice cracking, asking, "What are you? Why won't you finish me?" No answers came, only a smirk. "You're still useful." A crystal materialized in a flash, pulsing like it demanded blood. It drove itself into Broky's forehead. The scream that followed was a symphony of horror, the mark branding him, binding him like cursed livestock. Fang's descendant howled. Rage, heartbreak, and power intertwined. "Bring me humans, alive. Deliver them." Broky convulsed, body twisting like molten metal being pulled apart, crimson energy coiling like barbed wire. His eyes burned with madness, fangs gleaming, primal instincts unhinged. Shadowy figures watched from afar, haloed and silent, puppet masters pulling strings. Suho realized the truth. This wasn't payback anymore. This was stopping a train of destruction before it leveled the world. Then came the system's ultimatum. Recruit the Monarch's descendants or face the apocalypse alone. No hesitation. Suho accepted. Their energies snapped together like puzzle pieces forged in fire. Baru watched silently, wings tense, realizing the script had just been rewritten. Even the Shadow Monarch hadn't predicted this. Broky lunged, a demon unleashed. Suho didn't flinch. No scream, no retreat, just raw, commanding presence. The earth fractured beneath him, dust exploding in waves. Mana and fury coiled around his body like a living storm. The bond skill triggered. Power surged violently, alive and screaming through him. A new force emerged, beast possession. Broky froze. This wasn't borrowed strength. This wasn't Fang alone. This was Suho, fused with Fang's legacy. Primal energy sharpened into a killing instinct. His eyes, razor-sharp, predatory, locked onto Broky. Death wasn't coming for him. Death was him. Suho's movements weren't human anymore. Every step, every swing, every dodge. It was pure instinct, fluid and precise. Less man, more shadow incarnate. Broky barreled at him like a hurricane made flesh, claws slashing, eyes blazing with blind fury. But Suho didn't flinch. He moved like a ghost, every strike Broky threw missing by a hair, every swipe failing to touch him. Then Suho retaliated. One kick, clean, precise, packed with the weight of vengeance, smacked Broky square in the chest like a truck fueled by righteous rage. Broky stumbled back, choking, blood trickling down his fangs. His roar shattered the sky, a primal, rabid scream that bent the air. Dark mana erupted from him, twisting and tearing the space around them. This wasn't just fury, it was absolute unhinged power. Broky lunged again, teeth bared, claws screaming death, but Suho had already downloaded every cheat code the universe could offer. He slipped past every strike, effortless, untouchable. Above, Beru's wings froze mid-flap. Calm Beru, the unflappable, looked stunned. Wait a second, this kid's actually doing it. Broky couldn't comprehend it. He had been the apex predator, top of the food chain. Now he was the joke. The world flipped upside down and he was getting clowned by some E-rank kid. Their fists collided, an explosion cracking the ground beneath them. The battlefield ripped apart like paper in a hurricane. Then, mid-fight, the system dinged. Unarmed combat skill activated. Attack power plus 33%. Suho's body glowed like a star igniting from within, energy spiking uncontrollably. He launched himself into the air, eyes burning, body radiating lethal intent. He crashed down. The impact was cataclysmic. Broky slammed into the dirt, the earth itself seeming to regret existing. Dust, shattered boulders, trembling trees. Nature itself bore witness. When the dust settled, Suho stood in the crater, breathing hard. Bruised, bloodied, but unbroken. Broky, a relic of a lost era, bloodied, beaten, finally realizing he wasn't the main character anymore. Regret mingled with his thirst for power. Deep, painful, soul-crushing regret. Beside him, the wolf pup sat quietly, ears drooping, eyes locked on Broky like it was mourning a world too broken to name. Broky's eyes flickered, a human spark surfacing amid the wreckage. Memories clawed through him. Before madness, before corruption, before the obsession with strength had ruined everything he once swore to protect. Now, all of it lost to time and tragedy. Suho, meanwhile, stood above it all, unreadable, sorrow carved into his face, but so was anger, exhaustion, and something deeper, something that had nothing to do with victory. The system pinged, Broky defeated, victory in hand, and it felt hollow. Something lingered, wrong, dark, alien, flickers at the corner of his vision. Creatures, corrupted energy, a presence that wasn't Broky. Suho's gut tightened. Are these leftover Itarim pawns, or something worse? Beru's antennae twitched. Itarim, he said gravely. Not dungeon gossip, not Earth-level threats, outer gods, cosmic predators playing 4D chess with planets. And now their pawns were loose on Earth. Before Suho could digest the full cosmic horror, Beru dropped another bomb. If you let me consume Broky's corpse, I can glimpse his memories, and maybe reclaim some of his old power. Suho blinked. Beru was casually suggesting necromancer-level buffet service like it was a Tuesday. He glanced down at the wolf pup, the last heir of Raken, heir to a bloodline almost lost. The kid's world had been obliterated in minutes. Suho knelt, calm, grounded, a human anchor in a world gone insane. He offered the pup a choice, stay with him, or go somewhere safe. Hesitation, fear, but Suho's aura wrapped around it like a warm, unbreakable blanket. The wolf leapt into his arms, decision made. Beru hovered, silently screaming internally. What the hell am I watching? Suho opened a shadow portal, handing Beru the cleanup duty. He took his new companion somewhere safe. But because the universe hates simplicity, the system pinged again. Name the wolf. Suho froze. This dude could shred monsters, defy death, and survive battles that would make gods blink. But naming a pet, that was a level of responsibility he'd never prepared for. And just like that, the stage was set. Wolf, Shadow, and Suho, a new pact forged in blood, rage, and legacy. And somewhere, the universe probably facepalmed. Suho named the wolf Gray, a nod to the pup's sleek silver fur. Beru, of course, immediately threw shade. Boring, the drama queen sniped, wings twitching. Gray didn't care. Trust level spiked. The system even gave him his own territory inside the shadow domain. Kid had been homeless 5 minutes ago. Now he had property. Beru's next question was obvious. What the hell is this fluffball supposed to eat? Suho didn't get a chance to panic because Beru smirked. Relax, he's noble blood. And we've got goblins for days. Like clockwork, Gray lunged into the dungeon, obliterating a goblin in one clean hit. Suho perched on a branch beside Beru, arms crossed, watching his new recruit adapt faster than anyone would have thought possible. The system chimed again. Wolf Slaughterer, achievement unlocked, nuked Broky. Suho squinted at the message, like the system had glitched. Broky gave off more hyena crackhead energy than noble wolf vibes, but Beru wasn't about to lecture on taxonomy. Then a new quest dropped. Typical system vagueness, cryptic, messy, designed to boost power. Beru explained the system always hid its agenda beneath riddles and rewards. Power was the carrot, but sometimes the system had its own games. He reminded Suho of his father, the original Shadow Monarch, supposed to be a puppet for some crusty god. That didn't work out. No, Dad rage-quit reality itself, overthrew the system, and ascended on his own terms. Fuck your rules, he said, and became a monarch by sheer will. Suho's system? Different. Not wrapped in malice. At least not yet. Baru hinted that maybe this system was guiding him toward rebellion. Or worse, shaping him to become the next monarch, a wildcard capable of rewriting the game entirely. One thing was clear, only one Shadow Monarch rules, and if Suho was on that path, chaos was inevitable. He opened his status window, growth chart looking solid. Level 16 after the Mistburn fight, but his class still blank, no title. The system was waiting, judging, seeing if he was worth the crown. Suho knew that without Gray, he'd be dead in a ditch somewhere. Still, plans in motion. Suho leapt from the branch, Baru finishing up Broky's cleanup. That's when Baru hit him with a bombshell. This wasn't just monsters. Humans were in the mix. The Grim Reaper Guild had been secretly feeding the Hyena Guild captives like some twisted Uber Eats for murder. And maybe worse, Suho's stomach sank. Monsters were one thing. Humans pulling strings behind the scenes? That made it personal. Cut to somewhere high above the city, a penthouse dripping in wealth and suspicion. A man lounged like he owned the skyline, dressed like he stole every page of a fashion catalog. Lim Tegyu, top hunter authority brass, called. He went straight for the throat, asking if this guy had ties to the Hyena Guild. The executive didn't flinch, smirked like a smug bastard, cold as frozen lava. No proof, no care. Authority or not, he answered to no one. Tegyu left a threat, a reality check. Skeletons would dance, eventually. The call ended, and the man slammed his fist into the desk, shattering it like it was made of balsa wood. Vice commander of the Grim Reaper Guild. Not just rich, dangerous. From his drawer, he pulled out a glowing orb, a stardust stimulant, a rare, illegal awakening tool, temporary godlike strength, at the cost of frying the body or turning the user into a chemical-fueled killing machine. He twirled it between his fingers, grinning like he was already orchestrating world domination. Meanwhile, back in the Shadow Domain, Gray was going full anime mode, tearing through goblins like they were NPCs in some absurdly overpowered farming quest. Suho leaned back on the branch, watching, calm as chaos danced below. The stage was set. Monsters, guild corruption, ancient bloodlines, and the first stirrings of a system that might, or might not, be leading him toward the ultimate throne. And Suho? He was just getting started. Claws, fangs, and screams filled the dungeon, until boom, a system message sliced through the chaos. Daily quest unlocked. Suho's heart skipped. The objective? Simple on paper. Slaughter more goblins, keep clearing the dungeon. But something about the timing felt off. Daily quests weren't just grind. They were subtle nudges. The system wanted long-term growth, methodical progression, mastery over the environment. The grind arc had officially kicked off. Baru hovered silently, letting Suho piece it together. Maybe the system was nudging him to claim the entire dungeon as his own domain. Suho smirked. Game on. But logistics were a problem. How the hell was he supposed to gather enough goblins for this scale of chaos? Then it clicked. He'd picked up a horn flute on a past raid, said to attract goblins en masse. Perfect. He raised it to his lips, blew, and the haunting melody echoed like a dark summoning. Shadows stirred. Goblins poured in from every corner, drawn to the sound like moths to flame. Suho's eyes gleamed. This is my mixtape, Goblin Genocide. Baru nodded, impressed. Suho dove in, fists moving like twin sledgehammers, obliterating creatures before they even knew what hit them. But as hours dragged on, a familiar twinge hit him. The thrill was gone. These goblins weren't threats anymore, just moving punching bags for level-ups. Still, the quest demanded completion. He raised the horn again, louder this time, deeper, and the second wave surged, bigger, dumber, hungrier. Suho wasn't done. With a snap of will, fallen goblins rose as shadow soldiers, transforming the fight from solo grind to full-scale battlefield simulation. Gray, the pup-turned furry war god, led the charge. Wave after wave fell under their combined might. 3 hours later, the dungeon was nothing but blood, bones, and shattered dreams. Gray collapsed, panting, utterly drained, but Suho, still standing, soaked in sweat and mana, grin blazing. System chimed. Quest completed. But the kill counter didn't stop at 100. It kept climbing. Suho's eyes sharpened. This was a challenge he could speedrun for extra credit. Grinning wider than the sun, he dove back in. Goblins didn't stand a chance. Gray barely managed to keep up, lungs wheezing, eyes wide in terror as Suho unleashed his fury. Finally, the system relented. Quest complete. Reward popped. Full HP restore, 3 stat points, and 2 loot boxes. 1 blessed, 1 cursed. Suho flexed. Full heal? Check. Stats? Nice. Loot boxes? Of course. He tore open the cursed box first. Light exploded as if the gods themselves were facepalming at the audacity. Inside, obsidian gauntlets, dripping with raw menace. Physical damage boosted by 30%. Hands looking like they could punch through a tank. Suho slipped them on, whispering with dramatic flair, "Shadow weapons? Who needs them?" He was ready to fistfight destiny itself. Then the system dropped a reality bomb. Gray's loyalty had slipped. Admiration had shifted to fear. Suho blinked, turning to Baru. What the hell? Baru exhaled. Gray wasn't just a summon, he was alive, pushed past limits, exhausted, and Suho had nearly forgotten it in his mad power grind. Suho nodded, understood. They'd back off, for now. Exiting the dungeon, Suho's mind leapt to the next headache. Grim Reaper Guild. Still shady, still lurking. Before he could spiral, his phone buzzed. Surprise, surprise. It was Senior Lim. Field pacing like a storm, furious. His team had ghosted their corpse cleanup, probably still drunk from last night. Suho, Destiny's unpaid intern, geared up. Corpse hauling wasn't glamorous, but someone had to do it. Then the actual hunting squad rolled in. Their leader radiated a weird mix of stern dad energy and top-tier healer authority. One look at the carnage, and he was already salty, blaming Lim for being short-staffed. Suho kept his cool, but something felt off. The aura, the presence, it clicked. Grim Reaper Guild still lurked, hiding behind a human face. And this healer? Acting way too suspicious. Suho wasn't just in the middle of this mess. He was the target.